The first time I saw Willow Creek again, I wasn't standing on its main street in a clean dress. I was hunched in the back of Colt's wagon under an old canvas tarp that smelled like dust and rope, with my hair tucked up under a borrowed hat and my heart beating so loud I was sure it would give us away. Through a small tear in the canvas, I watched the town I'd grown up in slide into view. Same church steeple, same calf sign swinging on its creaky chain, same sheriff's office with the crooked step, same life, like I'd never stopped belonging to it. But somewhere on one of those doors was a piece of paper with my name on it, and in half the mouths I used to smile at, my story was already being told without me. It started at dawn in the old barn. The light came in pale and thin through the gaps in the boards, painting stripes across Colt's face where he sat with his back against a beam, hat tipped low. I woke to the sound of paper. He was folding something, careful, neat creases. "What's that?" I croaked, my voice still rough from sleep and last night's fear. He glanced over. "A map," he said, "or the closest thing this valley has to one." He spread it on the hay between us. It wasn't a real map, more like lines he'd drawn himself. Canyons, ridges, little marks for cabins, springs, stray fence lines. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Trying to see what Hart's riders will see," he said, "and what they won't." I pushed myself up, cradling my bad arm without thinking. "Last night he said they'd widen the search," I said. "Did you sleep at all?" "Enough," he said. His eyes said barely. "He's not just angry," Colt went on. "He's worried. A man like that doesn't widen a search just because his feelings are hurt. He widens it when he is afraid of what you might say if you get to someone first." "Someone like Cade," I said, "or Marla, or the pastor, or any of a dozen people who've seen more than they admit," Colt added. He tapped a point on his rough map where the town sat like a little cluster of squares. "If Hart twists your story first," Colt said, "any word you speak after that has to fight for air." "It already does," I whispered. "He's told them I'm sick in the head, confused, fragile." "Then we stop letting him be the only voice in the room," Colt said. I stared at him. "You want to go into town," I said slowly. "While there's a search party looking for me, I have to," he said. "Cade can't come all the way out here without eyes on him. I need to see what Hart's saying today, not last week. Need to hear the whispers, see the notices, get a sense of who's swallowing his story and who's choking on it." My stomach twisted. "You're not going alone," I blurted. He looked up. "Rose, no," I said, more firmly than I felt. "I'm not going to sit on a pile of old hay and wait while you walk into the middle of my life like it's just another chore. If people are talking about me, I want to hear it. If Hart's changing the story, I need to know how." "It's dangerous," he said. "So is hiding forever," I shot back. "If he convinces the whole valley I'm unstable, it won't matter where we go. He can drag me off a church pew or out of a grocery line 3 towns over and call it treatment." The word tasted like ash. Colt's jaw tightened. "You think I don't know that?" he said quietly. "Then don't ask me to stay blind on top of it," I whispered. Silence stretched between us. I could see the war in his eyes. "You wouldn't walk down the main street," he said finally. "You'd stay off to the side, covered, hidden, in and out." "You'd be with me?" I asked. "Every step," he said. My heart flipped. "Then yes," I said. "We go." It took longer than I thought it would to become someone else. Colt rummaged through old trunks in the barn's shadows, coming back with a worn work shirt that used to belong to Whitaker hired hands, a battered felt hat, and a canvas coat long enough to hide most of my dress. "Arms up," he said. I snorted softly. "You realize one of my arms doesn't do up right now," I said. "Right," he muttered. "Forgot for a second you're held together with anger and bandages." He helped me slide my good arm into the sleeve first, then gently coaxed the injured side into the other. The fabric tugged, but not as sharply as I expected. "Too big," I said, looking down. "Good," he replied. "Too big means the shape of you changes. People see what they expect, a tired hand, not a runaway bride." He rolled the sleeves, buttoned the front for me when my fingers fumbled. When he reached the top button, his hands paused. "You all right?" he asked. "Just. This is the coat I saw one of our ranch hands wear the last summer before Hart started coming around," I said. "Feels like borrowing a ghost." Colt's gaze softened. "Then we'll return it in better shape than we found it," he said. He tucked my hair up under the hat, fingers careful not to tug. A few strands escaped near my neck. He swept them under the collar. "Keep your head down," he murmured. "Talk as little as possible. If someone looks too close, let me do the talking." "Protective and bossy," I muttered. "Alive," he said. "I'm aiming for alive." We walked out to the wagon he'd dug out from behind the cabin 2 days before, a small, sturdy thing, more for hauling hay than impressing anyone. He spread a faded tarp in the back. "You only pop your head up when I say so," he said. "On the edge of town, maybe by the feed store. You can hear a lot from a back alley." "I grew up here," I said. "I know exactly which walls talk the most." His mouth twitched. "I bet you do," he murmured. The road to Willow Creek felt longer coming back than it had leaving. Every bend in the trail was a memory. There's the spot where I fell off a pony when I was 9, and Daddy laughed until he cried. There's the creek where Mama used to wash linens, humming under her breath. There's the fence line Hart insisted on replacing after the first note came due. I lay under the tarp, the rough canvas close above my nose, the wagon bumping softly beneath me. It was dim in my little fabric cave, but I could see slivers of sky through the tear by my face. Colt's silhouette sat steady on the wagon bench. Now and then, his hand dropped back to touch the edge of the tarp. "Just a small brush of fingers." "You all right?" he'd murmur. "Still here," I'd whisper back. A protector's check-in. Simple, quiet. As we crested the low hill overlooking the town, he eased the wagon off the main track and into a stand of scrub. "Stay down," he said. "Gonna take a look." I listened to his footsteps in the dirt, then the quiet pause as he took in Willow Creek. For a moment, I imagined what it looked like to him. Not the way I'd seen it all my life, but through his eyes. A man who'd ridden in for supplies and odd jobs, never staying long enough for the gossip to stick. Bootsteps came back. "Whole place looks the same," he said, climbing into the wagon again. "Except for the notices." My throat went dry. "Notices?" I asked. "On Cade's door, the church board, Marla's calf window, a couple of fence posts," he said. "Hart's been busy with his paper." "What do they say?" I whispered. "That you're missing," he said. "That you're dear, that you're beloved, and that you might be confused and need gentle handling when found." I closed my eyes. "He makes it sound like I'm a wounded animal," I muttered. "Not an animal," Colt said quietly. "Property." The word landed hard. "I hate him," I whispered. "Good," Colt said. "Hate's honest. We can work with honest." We didn't roll straight down the main street. Colt took every side track the town had to offer, circling behind the livery and the feed store, where the ground turned to packed dirt and old straw rather than the swept front walkboards. "Okay," he said finally, voice low. "You can look now. Just don't climb all the way out." I eased the tarp back, blinking in the sudden light. We were in a narrow lane that ran behind the calf and the general store. Barrels lined one wall. Broken crates. A stack of burlap sacks. The back door to Marla's kitchen stood half open, steam and the smell of frying bacon drifting out. Voices floated through the crack. "Such a shame. Poor Mr. Hart. Always did say Rose was too delicate. I heard she ran off with some drift." "Hush your mouth, Nancy. No one's proved anything." My chest clenched. Colt washed my face. "Remember," he said softly. "They're repeating what they've been fed." "I know," I whispered. "Doesn't make it hurt less." We stayed there a while, wheels still, listening. I heard my name a dozen different ways. Poor Rose, foolish girl, unwell, a danger to herself, bless her heart. Every phrase twisted my story a little more. Then a different name floated out. "And what about those Hanson boys? And Luke Mercer?" "They all disappeared out near those back parcels." I stilled. "What did she say?" I whispered. Colt's posture went rigid too. We both leaned closer to the crack in the door. "Marla, I'm telling you," one of the voices insisted, "it's not just that poor girl. Every time Hart gets his hands on a spread that used to belong to someone else, one of the men attached to it ends up lost. Now you're stirring trouble, Marla replied. Careful with that, I'm just saying, the first woman persisted. Hansons sign papers. Next season, their eldest boy falls off a ridge no one ever liked riding. Mercer's brother goes out to check Hart's new fence. Doesn't come back. Now Rose wraps herself in lace and runs on her wedding day. Tell me that doesn't smell funny, my breath caught. I looked at Colt. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jump. See, the woman went on. Folks say it's bad luck land. I say Hart's the only one who comes out of those tragedies with more than he went in with. Keep your voice down, Marla hissed. You want him to hear you from here? She sighed softly. Anyway, she added, I don't think Rose is crazy. I think she finally saw a way out and took it. Can't say I blame her. I just hope she lived long enough to get where she was going. Heat stung my eyes. Colt's hand curled into a fist on his knee. You hear that? He murmured. I heard Hart's name wrapped around my father's debts and your brother's last ride, I whispered. And I heard the only person in there who ever taught me how to scramble eggs say she doesn't think I'm crazy. A tiny, shaky laugh slipped out of me. Marla always did have better sense than half this town put together, I added. That's one, Colt said. One what? I asked. One person in your corner, he said. And probably more if she's talking like that. Whispers spread both ways. We didn't stay long behind the calf. Cade will be in his office this time of day, Colt said. Paperwork. Pretending the world simple enough to fit in his drawers, we moved the wagon down another narrow lane that spat us out behind the sheriff's office. Colt pulled up where the wall cast a shadow. Stay here, he said. If anyone comes back this way, duck. And if it's Hart? I asked. If it's Hart, I'll make enough noise you'll know to slide under the wagon and pray, he said. Comforting as always, I muttered. He gave me a quick, almost grin. Won't be long, he said. I watched him slip around the side of the building. A minute later, the back door creaked open, and Cade stepped out, hat low, jaw shadowed with a day's stubble. They met in the strip of shade. Mercer, Cade said quietly. You're picking dangerous days to visit. Dangerous days are when you find out what people really mean, Colt replied. Cade huffed a tired breath. You weren't kidding, he said. Hart has turned half this job into a search for a woman who might not want to be found by him. Notice how you worded that, Colt said. Notice how careful I have to be, Cade countered. Come inside. They disappeared for a few minutes. I chewed on my lip, watching the alley, listening for approaching footsteps. When the back door opened again, Cade stepped out holding a small stack of papers. Got that ledger from the land office, he said. Had to promise I wouldn't drip coffee on it. Colt took the papers and flipped through them. See that name? Cade pointed. Hanson's, Whitaker's, Mercer. They all had parcels out near the same ridge. All signed notes with Hart when the drought hit. And all their accidents happened after he started putting up new fences, Colt said. Exactly, Cade said. You asked me yesterday if I trusted you. I told you I trusted your eyes. Well, now I've got numbers and dates to go with your tracks in the dust. He dropped his voice lower. Luke's signature is on there, Cade added. On a work order. Last thing he did before he went out there to check a loose line. Colt went very still. He was working Hart's fence the day he disappeared, Cade said. Hart never mentioned that part when he came in all teary asking for a search. How long have you had this? Colt asked, voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. A while, Cade said. Didn't seem like a fire I could put out alone. Still doesn't. But with Rose missing now, those embers are starting to catch. Hearing my name from his mouth made my skin prickle. Cade glanced toward the wagon, his gaze lingering for a split second on the tarp. I froze. He looked away deliberately. Officially, he said, louder, I'm telling you as your sheriff to keep an eye out for Mrs. Hart and report any sightings. Officially, Colt replied dryly, I'll be sure to look under every rock. Unofficially, Cade murmured, if you've got eyes on her already, you tell her this from me. I don't believe she's sick. I believe she scared a man who's not used to being told no. The words hit me like a hand on my shoulder. You think Hart's behind all of it? Colt asked. I think trouble blooms around him like weeds, Cade said. And I think every time someone disappears on his land, his holdings grow. You do the math. He hesitated, then added. There's talk of a circuit judge coming through next month. Hart's been sniffing around, asking about commitment orders, saying he's worried his wife might harm herself if she's found. My blood ran cold. Commitment orders? Colt repeated. Papers that say a person isn't fit to decide their own movements, Cade said. He gets one of those signed, and you could be standing on your own 2 feet, saying clear as day you don't want to go with him, and the law would still hand you over. He met Colt's eyes. I can stall, Cade said softly. Ask questions. Drag my feet. But I can't stop the circuit court from rolling through. How long? Colt asked. A few weeks, Cade said. Maybe less. Time moves faster when a man with money wants it to. My heart thudded in my ears. And Mercer, Cade added, dropping his voice to almost nothing. If your second friend with the circle and slash mark has been trying to get your attention, maybe start listening more closely. Folks who move in the shadows sometimes see things even I don't. Colt's hand brushed his coat pocket where the brass button rested. What do you know about that mark? He asked. Cade's mouth twisted. Old drifter symbol, he said. Means what you see here isn't the whole story. Last time I saw it in this town, it was on a bunkhouse door the night before a foreman disappeared. Foreman? Colt asked. Worked for a spread Hart had his eye on, Cade said. Rode hard, asked too many questions then. Gone. His horse showed up near the ridge without him. Ridge again, Colt muttered. Ridge again, Cade confirmed. Funny how misfortune keeps favoring the same man. He straightened. Officially, he said again, louder now, I'm grateful for any help finding Mrs. Hart. Officially, Colt replied, I'll keep my ears open. They tipped their hats like 2 men who had just had the most ordinary conversation in the world. Cade went back inside. Colt turned toward the wagon. Our eyes met through the gap in the tarp. He didn't smile, but he looked decided. We couldn't leave without supplies. Quick, Colt said quietly. Feed, bandages, coffee, and something that doesn't taste like beans. I vote for Marla's pie, I said, trying to lighten my own nerves. Figures you'd risk town for sugar, he muttered. He pulled the wagon around to the side of the general store and tied off. Stay low, he said again. If anyone looks too close, I'll call you Tom and tell them you're my useless cousin. Tom, I whispered. First name that came to mind, he said. You look like a Tom right now. I did not look like a Tom, but I stayed under the tarp as he went inside, listening to the bell ring over the shop door, the murmur of voices. After a while, the smell of fresh bread drifted from the calf east side door again. I couldn't help it. I lifted the tarp just a little to get more air. Big mistake. Excuse me. My blood turned to ice. Marla stood in the alley, arms full of a tray of dishes, curly hair escaping her scarf. She'd stepped out the back to toss a pan of coffee grounds. Her gaze had landed right on me. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then I jerked the tarp down, sucking in a breath. Too slow. Bootsteps approached the wagon. Hey there, she called. You lost? I scrambled for the deepest part of Colt's borrowed voice I could find. No, ma'am, I muttered through the cloth. Just waiting on my cousin. The footsteps stopped right by the wheel. That's so, she said. What's your cousin's name? Panic clawed at my throat. Before I could answer, another voice cut in. Tom, Colt called, a little too bright. You bothering decent women again? Marla snorted. Oh, this one's yours, Mercer, she said. Figures you'd attract strays. Can't all be talented like you, Marla, he said easily, coming into view. Tom, here's better at sleeping in wagons than working. I put him back here so he wouldn't scare paying customers. I risked peeking out. Colt stood between us, leaning casually against the wagon side, body angled just enough that if Marla looked too hard, all she'd see was a shadow under a hat. Marla rolled her eyes. Tom, huh? She said. Are you any good at washing dishes? Terrible, I mumbled. See, she said to Colt. No use at all. But her eyes lingered on the tarp. For a terrifying second, I thought she'd pull it back. Instead, she sighed. You heard the latest? She asked Colt. About Hart bumping up the search. Says he'll pay premiums for anyone who brings her back alive. My stomach lurched. Alive, Colt echoed. His exact word, Marla said. Loud enough for the whole calf to hear, he made a thoughtful sound. Seems like the kind of thing a man would want either way, he said. Dead or alive, Marla's mouth tightened. Well, if anyone asks me, she said, I think if she's breathing, they should listen to what she says before they cart her off anywhere. Careful, Colt said lightly. Folks might think you don't believe Hart's poor wife lost her mind story. I don't care what they think, she snapped. I knew that girl when she was small. There wasn't a thing wrong with her mind, just the world around it. Emotion stung my eyes. Marla, she turned back toward the calf, then hesitated. Tom, she said, raising her voice just enough. If you ever find yourself on the wrong side of town with nowhere safe to sleep, you remember the back door of my kitchen stays unlocked till midnight most nights. For any Whitaker who needs a plate, my breath caught. It was too careful, too pointed to be an accident. Then she went inside, the door swinging shut behind her. Colt waited until it latched, then lifted the tarp and gave me a look. You see? He murmured. Two, I whispered. People who don't buy Hart's story, he said. Cade, Marla. The list's growing. My heart felt like it was trying to climb out of my chest. Why'd she say Whitaker like that? I asked. Because she's not as fooled as she pretends, he said softly. And because some folks in this town still remember whose name was on this land before Hart started carving his signature into it. We left the store with supplies stacked under the tarp beside me. Bandages, flour, sugar, coffee, and a wrapped bundle that smelled suspiciously like pie. Colt steered the wagon back toward the quieter edge of town. We'll swing by the church board, he said. Take a look at Hart's notice up close. Might be more in the words than you'd think. We pulled up just far enough that I could see the board through my little tear. The notice was neat, printed in a careful hand. Underneath, Hart's story about my fragile nerves, my confusion, his devotion. Something else caught my eye. Just in the bottom corner of the paper, small enough to miss if you weren't looking, someone had made a tiny mark in pencil. A circle, with a slash through it. I sucked in a breath. Colt, I hissed. Look, bottom corner, he squinted. Circle and slash, he murmured. Same as the tree, same as the button, so the second rider's been this close too, I whispered. Close enough to touch Hart's paper. He studied the mark. This isn't just a warning, he said slowly. It's an answer. An answer? I repeated. He nodded toward the notice. Hart's telling one story, he said. Whoever drew that mark is saying, don't believe this version. Do you think Cade saw it? I asked. Maybe, he said. Maybe not. But we did. He clucked to the horse, steering us away. As we turned, I saw something else. A small scrap of paper tucked under the edge of a nearby fence post, held in place by a splinter. Stop, I blurted. He pulled the reins, frowning. What? He asked. There, I said, pointing. He hopped down, walked over, and plucked the scrap free. It was another rough map. Not a full drawing, just a corner, a line for a ridge, a small X, and beside it, in quick, tidy script, Creek Bend, where fences don't match. Colt's eyes narrowed. Let me see, I whispered. He held it up. That handwriting, I breathed. Do you recognize it? He studied it, then went very, very still. Colt, I said. He didn't answer for a long moment. That looks a whole lot like Luke's hand, he said finally, voice low. Same way he makes his R's. Same way he hooks his K's. My skin prickled. But Luke's, I started. Missing, Colt said. Not proven dead. Nobody. Just a hat and Hart's version of events. Are you saying? My heart stumbled. Do you think it's him, leaving these? I don't know, he said honestly. Could be someone who rode with him. Someone who kept his notes. Someone who wants me to think of him. Why? I asked. So I'll look where he looked last, Colt said. At the places where fences don't match, the parts of Hart's land that don't make sense. We left town with more than supplies, and we left with a rough, cryptic direction. The creek bend, Colt said, unfolding his own map when we stopped under a stand of cottonwoods on the edge of the valley. Where fences don't match. That narrows it down. He traced a line with his finger. Here, he said, north of the ridge where Luke disappeared. Hanson's old line meets Hart's new field. Fences never sat right there. How do you know? I asked. Because I helped Stringer put the old posts in when I was 18, he said. I know exactly where they used to be. When Hart took that land, he moved a section. Just a few feet, but enough. Enough for what? I whispered. For the creek to change who it belonged to on paper, Colt said, and for a man who fell in the wrong place to be declared off Hart property instead of on it. My breath came short. Like Luke, I said quietly. He nodded. And maybe like those other boys Marla mentioned, he said. Fences that don't match. Lines that move. Stories that shift depending on who's watching. He folded the scrap from the fence post and tucked it with the brass button. Whoever's leaving these, he said, doesn't trust Hart, or his lines, or the way this valley's been drawn lately, then they're on our side, I said. Careful, he warned. They might just be on their own. But for now, our paths are headed in the same direction. On the way back to the hollow, the wagon rocked gently. I lay under the tarp, hat tipped over my face, heart full of too many things at once. Fear still, for the judge, for the papers, for Hart's smooth voice filling rooms I used to feel safe in. Anger, hot and clean, for every boy and man and ranch hand who vanished near the fence lines. Grief for Daddy, for Luke, for the life that had crumbled so quietly under Hart's polished boots. But under all of it, something else. Hope. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that stands on a table and shouts. The quiet kind that sits in a wagon under a tarp, listening to a cowboy's voice drift back from the bench as he hums under his breath and says, "We're not alone in this anymore." I pushed the hat up a little. "Colt," I said. "Yeah," he answered. "Thank you," I said softly, "for risking town, for letting me hear it, for not leaving me up in that barn while you tried to shoulder it all yourself." He was quiet for a second. "Truth is," he said, "I needed you to hear it. If I came back and told you what they were saying, you might have thought I was softening it, or making it worse. This way, you know for yourself." "I heard them call me fragile," I said. "I heard them call you trapped," he countered. "Sometimes the same word sounds different depending on who's holding it. And Cade," I added. "He doesn't think I'm sick." "No," Colt said. "He thinks you scared the wrong man. That's a very different diagnosis." I smiled into the canvas. "That second rider too," I said. "Whoever they are, they're risking a lot, marking Hart's notices like that." "Yeah," Colt agreed. "This valley's starting to whisper back." By the time we rolled back into the hollow, the sun was tipping low, painting the canyon walls in gold and rust. Colt pulled the wagon into the shadow of the old barn and helped me down. My shoulder ached, but it was the familiar, dull kind of hurt now, not the sharp, white-hot flare of the first days. He unloaded the supplies, stacking them neatly. "So what now?" I asked. "We wait for Hart to ride us into a corner? Or we go straight to that creek bend and knock down his fences ourselves?" A small, dangerous smile flickered across his mouth. "Soon," he said, "but not alone. We need Cade seeing what we see. Need Marla repeating the right version. Need more than just tracks and scraps before we step foot on a line Hart as drawn as his." "You're talking about building something," I realized. "A case. A net. What did Daddy call it? A backstop. So if one thing fails, something else catches you." "Exactly," Colt said. He walked to the barn door and looked out toward the distant ridge where the creek cut its slow, stubborn path. "Next time we go out there," he said, "we're not just going to look. We're going to bring something back that Hart can't explain away." "Like what?" I asked. "Broken posts with the old branding," he said. "Ledger pages that don't match the land. Maybe someone who saw more than they let on when Luke went missing. And that second rider, I added. Whoever they are, and them, he agreed. If they'll show their face. I stepped up beside him in the doorway. The wind brushed my cheek, carrying the faint sound of water from far off, the creek, winding its way past fences, past rocks, past the places where men had disappeared. I swallowed. I'm scared, I said quietly. Good, he replied. I blinked, startled. Good, I repeated. Means you understand what's at stake, he said. Brave doesn't mean not scared, Rose. Brave means you see the cliff edge and still decide where your feet go, and where are ours going? I asked. He looked at me, eyes steady, gentle and fierce all at once. First, he said, we rest, we eat, we let your shoulder heal a little more. Then we ride that creek bend, not as hunted things, but as people looking for the truth and Hart. I whispered. Hart can widen his search all he wants, Colt said quietly. He's still looking in the wrong places for the wrong version of you. He slid his hand into his pocket, fingers closing around the brass button and the little scrap of map. We're not the ones running blind anymore, he added. Behind us, the barn settled with a soft creak. Out beyond the hollow, the ridge waited. And somewhere between here and that crooked fence line, I knew the next part of this story was already written in the dust, just waiting for us to read it. When I left Hart Ranch in a torn wedding dress, I thought I was running away from everything I knew. Today, hiding under a tarp on the edge of Willow Creek, I heard my town say my name in a dozen different ways, some sharp, some soft. I heard about men who vanished where fences moved. I watched a sheriff quietly choose truth over comfort. I saw Marla leave a back door open for a Whitaker who might need a plate. And on the edge of Hart's own notice, I saw a small circle with a slash through it, a whisper in pencil. This isn't the whole story. If you want to know what we find at that creek bend where the fences don't match and where Colt's brother rode for the last time, make sure you subscribed so you don't miss episode 6 a path to heavy. And tell me in the comments, if you were in my boots, would you ride straight to that ridge for answers, or keep gathering whispers a little longer before you step onto Hart's land?